All right, so I'm gonna add the garage, and the garage is it's part of our late term project here. So I'm gonna go to assignments. I'm gonna go to late term project here, and kind of take a look at things. So the garage isn't tricky really, but there are probably some things that maybe you haven't seen happening before. So maybe I will just put it in place of this little guy here. There we go. Okay. Oh, I can't quite get it. Well, anyway, I might have to pull it onto my other screen. Oop. Nope. Let's see. Let's just talk about it. So basically, this is what the garage is going to look like. I'll zoom in here. And some things I just want to point out. It's going to be 20 feet away from the house, so that's the first thing. The roof is going to slope just like this roof right here. So this is the tall point, and it will go down to the low point. This is what the wall is going to look like. So there's going to be a little footing, and that's going to be 30 inches below our grade, we'll say. Our grade can be considered, you know, finish, floor, level 1, or ground level. And we're going to have a foundation wall that comes up to finish grade, but then it extends up like 18 inches above that, right? So the garage will have kind of a little concrete stem wall all the way around it. And then the wood wall will kind of begin at that point and, you know, go up towards the roof. So, you know, things that maybe you haven't thought about doing, we're going to talk about in this detail as we create this garage. So this is going to require us to create some new levels, likely for the garage, to get our walls working correctly, and to use some base offsets probably and some top offsets to make things work. We'll have to create a new roof, and we'll have to probably go like, I'll have to look inside Revit again, I don't remember, but if Revit doesn't have a garage door built in, then we'll have to go to somewhere like Revit City and find a garage door to install on this garage. All right, so I'm going to just look at this on my other screen here. Sorry guys, I wish I could put on the other one. But really, I guess I can just maximize this because we're not looking at it both of those on the same screen anymore. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to probably top of wall here. SD shade view. I'm going to go to top of wall because I want to see where this roof is, and I want to see where this roof is, right? And I think that maybe my what is off? Maybe my roof or my deck is one's longer than it should be. Anyway. Oh, or maybe it's just being cut off from my view. Let me look at my roof level here. Yeah, okay, my roof looks pretty good. So I think that it was just cut off in the view we were looking at. I'm going to come down here actually to view range, and I'm going to edit the way that I'm viewing my tall roof floor plan so I can see the lower roof below it. Top of wall. There we go, looks pretty good. Okay, so my garage is going to be 20 feet away from the section of this building that has that kind of larger roof that, you know, kind of kicks back right there, jogs back. All right, so it's just going to be below here, essentially. So I'm going to change to wireframe view, WF. And I could also come down here and change it, you know, my views, hidden line, wireframe. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I know that my garage has to be 20 feet off of this exterior wall, right? And so I'm going to make my roof wireframe so I can see through it and see this wall below it. Before I actually start drawing that garage, I know that it's 30 feet by 24 feet. And I need to kind of look at my levels and determine where those levels are going to fall for my garage. So actually I'm going to kind of go into maybe my north view here and kind of look at a few things. And I think I'm going to still establish, let's see. We'll just do this. I'm just still going to establish my level 1 as maybe the level for my my garage, right? So we're just going to say that there's no steps around my house, and the garage is going to be on the same level as the house, right? Maybe a little bit shorter. I think it's going to be, or maybe not, 8 foot. It's going to be about 10 foot tall. But I will establish this level 1 as my finished floor for my garage. Okay. Now, the finished floor for my garage will be at, ground, or we'll say ground level, finished floor level. But then I have to have a foundation wall, right, that goes 30 inches below that. And as it sort of is occurring now with the levels that I don't have anything 30 inches below this level 1 to indicate my garage where my foundation goes to, right? Don't be confused by the term foundation wall, right? This is kind of identical to if you were to think of it in terms of like a basement wall, right? It's just a short basement wall. It goes 30 inches below ground instead of 8 feet, right? So we're going to treat that this foundation wall the same as a basement wall. And this little footing right here, right? Don't treat that any differently than the footing on our basement on our house. It may be a lot shallower, right? But it's still the same idea, okay? So I think I'm going to have to create a couple of new levels. So architecture level, and I'm drawing it here. So it will show up on my house, but really I'm going to use it for my garage. So this one is going to be called something like bottom of foundation. And I think I want to distinguish that it's for my garage. And that's going to be, that was lucky, negative 2'6" below my main level. Does that make sense what I just did there? Hopefully. And then below that, right, I'm going to have the footing for my little foundation wall. So this little wall goes from here to here, 30 inches, and then I have my little footing below. So we'll have to do another bottom of footing level, but it's going to be for my garage. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I'll call this bottom of footing garage. Okay. Now, these levels are going to start showing up everywhere, right? So if I go to my east elevation on my building, of course I see those new levels. If I go to, the south, I'll see them again. They don't really relate to my house. They relate to my garage, and so I could likely choose to turn them off, right? If it gets kind of cluttered, I'll probably do that. If my drawing is not very cluttered, then I might just leave them on, okay? You guys will, of course, have lovely windows and everything on your projects. If my text begins to overlap like this, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click on that little elbow, click, right, and make everything look the way it should. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, I think I'm going to go back to my level 1. And we've established sort of the garage is going to be on this side of the house, right? And I think now I'm going to start drawing the outline of my garage, okay? So we need to, here's one thing you kind of have to think about, right? It's not necessarily on the plan, but you have to think about, I understand that the garage is 20 feet away from the house, but my garage has to give me enough space right here so that like the cars can sort of drive in there, right? Which means that I have an 18-foot door here. My garage is 30 feet. Let's say that my driveway is going to be 20 feet wide. We'll just make up a number, right? 20, or if you wanted to do 22 or 24. I'll look at your drawings and I'll say, oh, they allowed enough space for the cars to kind of come back here and get in, right? But in placing it in terms of how far away from it is the house this direction, I just need to think about some cars kind of driving back in there, okay? And again, I might draw it and not get it quite in the right spot. This one I think I can do a pretty good job though. All right, so what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to start placing my garage, and I'm going to use reference planes to help me get it in the right spot. If you remember, reference planes are kind of like construction lines. I can place them in my drawing and make them a specific distance away from items. but they don't print, right? So they can help me line things up, but then they don't print, which is nice. So I'm going to type RP reference plane, and I'm going to draw one here, and I'm going to draw one here. And I didn't really measure because I likely couldn't have gotten them the exact dimension away from the house I wanted them to be, right? But I know that this first one, I want it to be 20 feet away from the house because that's how far the garage needs to be from the house. So DI dimension, and that says 9'7". Well, we want it to be 20 feet away from the house. So I click on the reference plane, click on the dimension, 20 feet. Perfect. Now I want this to be at least 20 feet away from the house so my little cars can get into my garage. DI dimension, click, and I'm going to tab, click. There we go, pretty close. We'll do 20 feet. So what I've just done there is established that you know, my garage has to kind of start, one of the corners has to kind of start right here so that my little cars can come down and drive in very nicely. All right. So I've done this, but now I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to draw my walls. The base constraint is going to be the main level of the house, but the top constraint, and you'll notice I made a little change. I drew this and then I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to say make the inside height of the garage 10 feet for the lowest point instead of the noted height. So this is kind of a little mistake right there. Okay, so I'm thinking, how am I going to make that garage 10 feet tall? Well, I need to create another level, right? And so I'm going to go to my north elevation again, which is where I like to create levels. And I'm going to go to level. I'm going to create one more level, and it's going to be 10 feet, and it starts to make things messy, which I don't like, but I have to kind of deal with. Okay, I'm going to call this top of wall garage. And it's okay, you don't want to make too many levels, but don't be afraid to have them. I mean, they are there for a reason, right? They're organizing your drawing, they're establishing datums. So don't be afraid to have them. Okay, so I've now defined top of wall garage. I have my foundation wall for the garage and the footing for my garage. And top of wall will sort of, for my garage, will establish where the roof sits, right? So I think I have everything now to create my garage. Back to level 1, and I'm going to use this exterior wall to create my garage. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to grab this wall, and I'm going to choose create similar. We talked about create similar, and I'm going to draw a garage that is, oh, I want to draw from the finished face exterior. 30 foot by, we'll say 24 foot. It's almost as big as the little house. There we go. So now if I pop into 3D, got a lovely little garage happening over there. Okay. So, oh, I forgot to define my walls after I went and made those levels. I'm going to grab my exterior walls, hover, tab, click. Okay, so finished face exterior goes from level 1 up to top of wall garage. Oh, it just defined itself nicely for me. Great. That is wonderful. But I need to look at a few things here before I continue on, because the next thing I need to create is the little foundation wall that goes underneath that garage wall, right? And that little foundation wall starts 18 inches above my finished floor, and it goes 30 inches below my finished floor. So my actual exterior wall that I just had drawn, that won't actually go down to the finished floor. It needs to be up 18 inches to accommodate that little foundation wall below it. Okay, so what that means is that this wall, it needs to have a base offset. Okay, so let me we'll look at these as we draw. Hover, tab, click. So instead of it starting at level 1, I'm going to give it a base offset of 18 inches. Hit enter. And, oh, maybe, did it already hike it up? Yeah, did you see that? Okay. There we go, hiked it up. So now if I look at these in elevation view, oop, my elevation is not showing. Ooh, we gotta do something else too. If I look at this in elevation view, there's my garage. There is level 1 right there, and that garage wall is sitting just above it. Okay. So now what that means is that I can generate my little foundation wall below that, right? And it will work. So I'm in level 1 again. I'm going to go to wall, and we're going to do our little concrete foundation wall here. And this is going to go from the base constraint will be bottom of foundation garage, and the top constraint will be level 1, right? But then you're thinking, well, if it goes to level 1, there's going to be an 18-inch gap between the level 1 and that wall we just generated because we bumped it up 12 inches or 18 inches. So I'm going to do it as is so you can see what's happening, and then I'll give it a top offset to fill the gap. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. Use my pick tool, and I'm going to change my location light to finish face exterior. Click, click, click. There's something very satisfying to watching all of that happen over there, right? And I've just generated the foundation wall, but there's a gap there, right? Hello. But that makes sense because I gave this a base offset of 1'6". So now I need to take this foundation wall, tab, click, and I need to make it so it comes up and meets that wall. So I'm going to give it a top offset of 1'6". And there you go. So I look at the south elevation, just nice and wonderful here. Okay. There we go. So here's my main level right there. And my foundation wall comes up above 18 inches above. My wall comes down and meets the top. Okay. All right, so that looks all good. It's time for me to add my footing. So now I'm going to go to bottom of footing garage, and I'm going to add my little footing wall, which is just a thickened foundation wall, right? We draw it exactly the same way we do the foundation wall, but it's just wider. We talked about that last time. So wall, and this one is going to be my footing. We're going to draw it to the center line. My pick tool. Let's see, bottom of footing garage. No, we want it to be, yeah, bottom of footing garage up to bottom of, that's the top constraint. There we go. Okay. Click, click, click. And I pop back into my 3D mode, and there are all my nice little foundation walls. Okay. Now I'm going to create my floor. Well, I'm going to create, yes, I'm going to create my floor in a second. I think I'm going to create my floor after I add my garage door, and I'll show you why in a second. But first I'm going to create my, my roof, okay? So I want my roof to slope the same way as the house roof. So this is going to be the tall side, that's going to be the low side, and I believe this was a 112. So we're going to do the same thing here. I don't think I specified an overhang, did I? Let's do a 2-foot overhang. We'll do a 2-foot overhang, just to make it weird. All right, so now I'm at, I want to open up my top of wall garage. Am I missing it? Top of wall garage. There it is. Oh, but I don't see the top of my wall garage because this level is actually viewing top of wall 4 feet above that level, right? The cut plane is 4 feet above that, right? There's so many settings in Revit. And just when you think you've set it right in one view, you change to another view and it's not set there, right? So, you know, it's just one of those things where, I mean, I hate to say it, but you just have to get used to it. And the only way that you sort of figure out if you're doing something right or wrong is you've done it 18 times, 20 times, and then finally you're like, oh yeah, if I do this first, then it will work, or, you know, vice versa, whatever. So I know now my view range, I want it to, the bottom of my view range to go to level below. Okay, and I can see my garage now. All right, time to create my roof. So this roof is the generic 12-inch. We're gonna leave that as is. And I'm gonna go to roof by footprint. And I'm gonna choose an outline. I'll do a 2-foot offset. Click, click. And now this is a single slope roof and I want this to be the high side. This is the low side. So the low side is going to slope up to the high side. But with a single slope roof, only one edge of the roof is going to slope. So I'm going to uncheck defines roof slope. I'm going to click on this and give it a 1/12 slope. And I'm going to hit finish and hope it works, right? And we have our little garage roof. Now I want, what is that? We got a floating foundation wall, or a footing. Delete that. Now I want my walls to come up and meet my roof, so I'm going to hover, tab, click, attach top to base, click, and they go up and they meet the walls there. Wonderful. All right, so I'm gonna go back to level 1 now. So I have a garage, I have my house over here, right? What I wanna do next is add a garage door. So I don't think there's a garage door in Revit for me to use. You know, I have to load it in. So I'm gonna go to Insert, Load Family, and let's see if we have a residential, a garage door. I don't know if we do. Oh, we do. We'll do that one. Open, and I just loaded in a garage door. So now to use it, architecture, door, garage door. This is 96 by 84. I want it to be 18 feet wide. Let's see how wide 18 feet is. I wonder how many inches. Let's see. 18 times 12, 216. Okay, just for my own. So I'm going to edit type, and I need to create a new garage door, right? So this one is 8 foot wide by 7 foot tall. So we'll make it 8 foot tall and 18 feet wide. So I duplicate it. I'm going to give it a new name. 18 foot wide by 8 foot tall. Give it a new name, and I just essentially have duplicated that garage door, creating a new one, leaving the original in its original dimension, right? This one's going to be, the width is going to be 18 feet now, and it's going to be 8 foot high, and I hit OK. And now Revit's just waiting for me to place it somewhere, and I'm going to hover over my garage, and it's going the wrong way because you can see those blue dashed lines. So I'm going to move to the, there we go, there we go. So we'll move it somewhere in there, right? There we go. That looks pretty good. So now I pop into 3D, and there's my garage door. Maybe I should have moved my garage over a little. I'm not going to change it now, but there we go. If you want, you can put a little, you know, we'll put a little man door in there. So door. Let's do a little man door right there. There we go. Okay. So we have our garage, we have our roof. Looks pretty good, right? I like that. Everything is looking the way it should. Except I don't have a floor in there, right? I need to add a floor. So I'm going to go back to my level 1 here, and I'm going to draw my floor. So I'm going to go to floor, architectural. This is going to be, I'm going to change it to well, we'll leave it at 4-inch slab. That's okay. And then I'm going to draw the outline of my floor. Okay. And I'm going to draw it. I can't see the outline. Hold on 1 second. Wireframe won't let me. All right, I'm going to make it very simple here. It needs to go further into the wall. These walls are supposed to. I'm not sure where my foundation wall is sitting within here, so I'm just going to draw it so that it outlines the garage here. Even though that might be a teensy bit incorrect, but there we go. And we'll even kind of take it out here. There we go. Finish. No. Okay. So I've got my little, my garage has a floor in it now. I can see that, right? And I have my foundation wall that goes up above the floor, right? 18 inches. I have my wall on top of it that comes and meets it, right? We're accomplishing that by giving a base offset to the main wall and a top offset to the foundation wall below. Got my little footing, my garage door, my man door, my roof. Everything is looking great with the garage. So that is what is meant by this detail, right? I wanted you to kind of understand how you can take these walls and sort of manipulate them and offset them above and below the plane where they need to lay, right? So any questions on any of that so far? Not terrible. Done it a million times, right? You can slow it down on YouTube and just follow along. Okay. All right. So Erica had a question about ceilings. What was your question about ceilings? And I'll just.
I don't know if I'm placing them right.
Okay.
Because I know it's like the flooring.
Ah, yes. Okay. So for the first thing for ceiling plans you have to remember is that when you draw them, you want to go into a ceiling plan, right? You don't want to draw them on a floor plan. So for example, if I'm drawing my, this is tricky because it's sloped, right? And I think I'm just going to draw, for right now, I'm just going to draw a flat one, okay? But for my ceiling plan, I need to go to the ceiling plan that corresponds to the floor plan I'm drawing it in, of course. So in this case, I go to level 1, right? And if this were indeed kind of just a flat slope roof, I'm gonna draw it the way it should be, and I'll talk about it. So this one is actually, we've got 2. It's a little bit complicated. I think we're gonna call it okay if we just kind of do a flat roof in here for now. So I'd click on ceiling, right? And I'm gonna sketch my ceiling. And if I wanted to draw a ceiling, for example, in the kitchen here, right, I would come into the kitchen, and you're likely going to draw these kind of in pieces, right? You'll draw them per room. And I would pick the kind of ceiling I want, like a gypsum board on metal stud, hit finish, and there's my first ceiling, right? Now, are you wondering where you're going to place it in the whole plane of I guess, the height-wise? Yeah. So now you put it there and you're like, did I get it right? And you can tab, you can select it, and you can see that it is 8 feet off of level 1, right? So that's one thing that's kind of helpful. But the other thing that is somewhat helpful is that you can go to the section and you can draw a section through it and look at it, right? And you can say, oh, it's actually lower than I had wanted it, right? And you can move it where you want it to go. Or you could grab it and say, well, I want it to be, 9 feet above level 1, and change it over here if you wanted. So those are a couple of ways that you can kind of get it into place. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll hurry and go over just how it slopes, right? So then if you want it to slope, it's a little bit more tricky, right? Because I kind of talked about this before, but right, I don't know exactly. I know this is a 112 sloped roof, right? And I know that it's going to be, I say this and I don't know why I'm questioning myself on it. It's going to be, hold on. It's going to be the same on the top and the bottom side, because it's not a truss that has a different slope on the bottom. Let's see. Look at that. Isn't that nice? There, yeah. I'm always questioning myself. But it's a 112 on the top and the bottom slope, of course, on the top and bottom of the roof in this case. I wish you could sort of input a slope like that into your ceiling, right? You know that the top of the roof is a 512 and the underneath of the roof on the truss is a 312. I wish you could just input that, but you can't. And so the best way that Revit has sort of given us to slope this and make it actually function, right, is using a slope arrow. Now this is not in the right spot, so I'm going to MV. Well, hold on one second. Bless you. I'm going to move it up, MV, to kind of where it would start, right? They would kind of start at that point on the roof. And actually, we wouldn't have a stud there. So I'm going to alter the type of roof, or sorry, ceiling that I'm creating. Edit type, duplicate. Okay. Edit the structure. So I'm going to move my gypsum board up. Delete that structure, change this to structure. And we'll give this a pattern here. So I want to see that actual gypsum. There we go. There we go. So now instead of just having that ceiling with that stud, I have just the plane of gypsum board. I'm going to go back to my ceiling plan level 1. And I'm going to grab my ceiling. Honestly, when I do, where is it? Oh, I'm going to click on it here in my section and hit edit boundary. There's a little trick for you for selecting things. And reflected ceiling plan level 1. There we go. So I hate the sloped roof workflow in Revit, but it's all we have, right? And the way that we're going to slope these is to use a slope arrow. I click on slope arrow, and I have a tail click, and I have where it slopes up to. So I have the height at tail, and I have the height off. Let's see, we have the height at tail and the level at the head, right? So right now, my tail, which is this point, I'm going to do 0. Okay. I'm going to hit finish. By doing what I've just done, let me delete that section. There's no way of easily showing this. I've just established, oh, sorry guys, I shouldn't have deleted that other section. Where did it go? Let's do that one. We're sloping from here to here, right? There we go. There we go. I've just established the tail there. In fact, I think I actually might have deleted my arrow. There we go. Okay, there we go. So the tail is at 0. The level at tail, we'll just leave it default height at tail. And then we don't need to worry about that. Level at head, I'm going to give it, we'll say top of wall. Let's see how close we can get. Top of wall. I'm going to apply that. So we have the level at the head of the arrow and the tail of the arrow. I have to specify the height here. I have to specify the height here. Hit finish. And you see how it's kind of sloping up. Do you see what's happening? I'm starting to get a slope going up, but it's not enough. So I have to continue. Essentially, what you have to do is you have to continue to play with this until you get the slope at the head and the tail correct, so that it's the same slope as that roof, the underside of that roof. And there's really not an easier way to do it. I wish there were. I wish I could take and add, it's a 112 slope, or I wish I could rotate the ceiling and align it, and you can't do any of those things. So I would say that, you know, for our purposes, right, I think that I would just get it as close as you can, right, to sloping up to that point, and we'll call it a day. But that's how you're going to draw the ceiling. That's how you can edit the ceiling type to be just gypsum board, right? And then to get it the height you want it, you can change it over here in the properties, right? Or you can move it up and down using the move command. And then to slope it, you'd have to add a slope arrow to it. There's just no easy way of going about that. Okay, that one's kind of a tricky one, right? One thing I want to do before I want to show you how to add a piece of topography in here, so that we have a ground plane in here. But before I do, I just want to talk about one other thing, okay? I want to talk about adding your drawings to sheets. And I just want to show you just some nice things that I think that will help with your drawings, right? So, for example, for this project, we all know how to now create a title block here, right? We can add that. We know that we have to drag, for example, level 1 onto sheet A101, and that will place the view on the sheet for us to create a PDF out of, right? But I want to talk about sort of drawing aesthetics, okay? And how you're going to make your drawings look nice, okay? So let's see here. Hold on one second. Let me look real quick. Yes, okay. So the first thing I want to point out is, and how you're going to separate your drawings, I guess I should say too. So right now, as it stands, this floor plan, level 1, it includes the floor plate of the house, but it also includes the floor plate of the garage, right? If you want to separate those two things out and put them on separate sheets, right, without doing a whole lot of extra work, let me change this to a hidden line view. Delete a couple of these things. And I'm going to turn off, I have an underlay turned on here, I think. There we go. Looks pretty good. Delete, delete. That looks pretty good, right? If I want this to be on one sheet, and I want this to be on a different sheet, I'm going to need to duplicate the view. All right, so level 1 right now, I can right-click, duplicate view with detailing, and level 1 and copy of level 1 look identical. All right, level 1. If I just want to show the floor plan, I'm going to manipulate the crop boundary. All right, so I can come down here, crop view, yes, show my crop region, great. I can drag my crop region in like this, and you can start to see now how you can use the crop region to manipulate what we see, right? I can turn my crop region off, and that just shows level 1. Now if I go to level 1 copy, if I just want to show the garage, right, I would crop the view, turn on my crop area, my crop boundary, click, and I would just show my garage. So that's how you can manipulate the views, right, to just show what you want to show. So now what I've just done, this is level 1, copy 1. I can right click, choose rename, and I can call this garage level 1. Okay. I can do the same thing with elevations. North elevation, you know, right now my north elevation is showing my house and my garage, right? So if I want to show just my house, right click, duplicate with duplicate view with detailing. We can call this right click. Actually, this hold on. I'm going to show you another way to do that. Pause that conversation. Let me show you something else that's easier. I just thought of. We'll come back to that. Let me get these other floor plans on a sheet first. Okay. So I have A101 and I need to put the floor plan on here. Okay, that's going to be one of the drawings you need to do. So I'm going to grab my level 1, drag it over, and I'm going to click and place it. That looks pretty good, right? Some things I notice here, right? Level 1, it's 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot. That seems like a pretty good scale for this drawing, right? If I wanted to alter the scale, I could click in the viewport. I could change it to 1/8 of an inch. It's just so tiny, right? So we don't want to see that. We want it to be readable, right? Whatever that scale may be. So, yep, we're going to change that to 1/4 of an inch. We're not going to leave it like that because it just doesn't make sense. I'm going to right click and hit deactivate view. Okay, so these are things that I like to see on your drawings. I like to see your drawings are at the right appropriate scale, right? And several of you have kind of struggled with this, and I get it because this is all new to you guys, right? I like to see that the floor plan's kind of in the center of the page, right? It makes it readable. So that's really easy to do in Revit, right? You throw the view on here. If you don't like where it's at, you click and hold and drag it to the middle. Easy enough, right? So that view looks pretty good. I could right click and create another new sheet. And maybe this new sheet is where my garage goes. Okay. Drag my garage. And I know my garage is going to be smaller than my house, right? And so I click and I place it, and it's kind of lonely on this sheet, right? Now, I've given you a list of sheets that you need to have, right? And I'm just going to give you the kind of the power to say, you know, my little garage was at 1/4 of an inch, and it looked kind of tiny and lonely on this sheet by itself, right? And if you were in an office, it costs, you know, I don't know, $4 a sheet to print. And so you want to get as much on each sheet as you can to minimize printing costs, but also, you know, sometimes it just makes sense to add more information to each page, right? So if it's a tiny little garage here, you know, what if I put the garage up in the corner and then maybe I put the elevations for the garage on the same page? That kind of makes sense, right? Or maybe I say, you know, on my, here, you know what, maybe there's enough space for me to show my garage level 1 here, right? I can change where this floor plan lives. I can click and hold and drag it up to this A101, let go. I could click there. Or maybe I could have just kind of left it uncropped on that same floor plate, right? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't. It does. Maybe it doesn't make sense. So I move this over, right? It's okay. I think it's okay. You probably could have left this garage plan underneath here, and it would have all fit very nicely on the sheet, right? If this sheet's actually larger, it's a 30 by 42, but if this had been 24 by 36, this probably would not have fit on the page below the floor plan. So to split it up into different floor plans makes sense, right? Things that I like about this floor plan, I don't like that dimension is overlapping the building, right? I do like that the grids extend out a reasonable amount, right? I don't want them to be all the way out here. I don't want them to be all the way up here. I want them to be kind of snug around the house, okay? I like that it's kind of sitting nicely on the page if I compare it to this. What I don't like is this. I don't like that line overlapping my title block. Click on it, drag it in. That was like 2 seconds, right? Click, drag it in. right? So easy. I don't like that this is kind of offset. I'm gonna click and maybe bring it down, and I know that it's supposed to line up somewhere down at the bottom. We know that for this course, right? But I want to make it sort of line up somehow with the house. I also don't like that this view title doesn't line up with this one. So I click on it. I sort of bring these little guys in here. I give this spiel in AutoCAD too, right? But your drawings say a lot about you as a designer, right? Are you meticulous? Are you detail oriented? Do things line up and make sense? You know, these are all things that your client is paying you a lot of money to create these drawings, and you know, I can forgive a beginning designer content, right? I just didn't know what the drawings needed. I didn't know how to detail it. I didn't know that the chimney needed this or that. I didn't know we needed furniture in there, right? I will forgive that more so than sloppy looking pages. So be like, oh, your drawings look neat, right? They look nice. You're missing some things, which we can talk about, but we want things to look nice and neat, right? So I can nudge them over, make them look really nice. I'm going to do an elevation sheet here because I think elevations are a bit tough. North. Well, first of all, I'm going to look at it. North, 1/4 inch is equal to 1 foot. Okay. Well, I'm seeing the garage beyond. Well, I think it's okay, except that kind of half the garage is being obscured by the main house. So we need to maybe fix some elevation stuff before we put it on a sheet, right? And I sort of like to fix things in my view before I put it on a sheet. And I say that because once you get it on the sheet, you're like, oh, I got it on the sheet. Hallelujah, right? I'm done. But you're not done, because if it doesn't look nice, then it's not finished, right? And I think it's a lot easier to fix it on here and then place it than to go back to the sheet and try and manipulate it, right? I get that. So I like to try and fix it in here as much as I can. Now with our elevation views like this, I'm going to go back to my level 1, click, click. Okay, all of my elevation markers seem to have disappeared here, right? Just some things I'm going to remind you of. I'm going to do not crop view. Well, there they are, right? They were just kind of outside my crop region. I'm going to drag those in as well and bring them very close to my little building. There we go, because we want those to show. I forgot about them and I shouldn't have, right? That's okay. But I want to show you something about elevations. So my elevation marker's here. If I click on the little head of the elevation marker, I get a blue line. Okay, this blue line, my blue line is extending into nothingness. Let's see here. Are you guys doing that? Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let's see here. I think I'm having a little crop region problem. Oof. Huh. The forums are telling me I need to reinstall my Revit to fix the problem. So don't worry what I'm doing here. I'm gonna hurry and fix something, but you don't have to do this. I'm just going to view, elevation, elevation. 1, 2, 3. I think I'm fixing a Revit problem. Do you see how my elevations didn't have those little grips at the end? What I was looking for with my elevations, right, is we'll say this is the north elevation, right? And okay, so what I did is I moved them in, and then I'm going to extend my elevation just past where my building goes, right? And I'm going to take this little drag marker and drag it to the edge of my building. So essentially what I've done here is I've defined my elevation just to be this portion. Now, if I had extended it past my garage, right, I would get my garage back there. Okay, but if I click on the elevation here and I bring that little marker forward, now I don't see my garage, right? It's still there. I'm just not seeing it because I'm defining the depth of my elevation, okay? So what you're going to want to do with your elevations is you're going to want to click on this little head marker and make sure that your little garage, at least for the building elevations, right, is not showing. They're not showing. Okay. So I like to manipulate this again before I sort of put this onto my sheet, because once I get it onto my sheet, I feel like I've really accomplished something, and then I tend not to alter things, right? So get as much of this done in the view as you possibly can, all right? But then you're thinking, well, how do I show the elevations for my garage, right? Well, I can go back to View, Elevation, and I can create some just very special for my garage. And I can drag this in, move it, right? And I can rename these elevations so that they have garage in the name. Okay. So you have to do it, you know, for all four, but once it's done, we look pretty good. Okay. This is my north elevation. If I want to rename my elevations, you notice that as I added new ones, it generically named them 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A, right? If I click on the marker itself, here's another kind of little Revit shortcut. Over here in my properties dialog box, I get the view name. I can click here and type, or not. North of elevation, enter, right? And I can click on enter. South elevation, enter. West elevation, click, enter. And now I have all these garage elevations, so I can click on my little north. I could say garage elevation, right? You guys get the idea. And you can add as many of these as you need. Is it when somebody's talking about you, your nose itches? Is that right? Hopefully good things. South garage elevation, west, and then I have my west. Okay. But again, you know, so I'm going to be adding my elevations now to sheets, but I want to go to each of these views first, click, click, and I want to look at it and make sure the scale is right. 1/4 of an inch, looks good. I want to make sure that all of my nice tags over here line up, and I'm going to turn that one off, right? If text is overlapping or I don't want to see something like top of wall garage, I can click on it, right click, hide in view, element, and it turns off, okay? So I can click on foundation for the garage. Doesn't apply to my house. So right click, hide in view, elements. Click, right click, hide in view, element. Okay. My grid lines are on my elevation, which is fine with me. They're not all the way up here, or, you know, I think my crop region is helping me with that. But they're not all the way up there, right? We kind of want them to be snug down to the house. We want them to look nice and neat. We don't want them to extend too far below the house. We don't want these to be too far outside the house. And it's just so easy in Revit to line those up. In AutoCAD, pain in the neck, right? You have to stretch all of them and make sure that they all went the right direction, right? Hopefully you don't skew them somehow and it messes everything up. But with these, really easy, okay? So that looks good. North elevation, we'll do the east elevation now. Click, click. 1/4 inch looks good. I just have a couple of, you kind of end up doing the same thing in each of the views. So I'm going to click, hold control, click, click, right click, hide in view, elements. That looks pretty good. I bring my crop region in just a little. Ooh, these grids are just overlapping the building, so I'm going to click on one. And look, it just drags them all up very nicely, right? Oh, they end halfway through the house. I drag it down very nicely, right? And, immediately my drawings become very readable, right? And, again, it might sound silly, but drawings that are readable, you're going to have, hopefully, likely, a lot less mistakes or a lot less questions on your drawings, right? So we'll click on these, bring them down, looks very nice. Because without fail, that one little floater guy over there, your client will be like, well, why is that one over there? Like, well, I forgot to change it in Revit, West elevation. Final one we'll do here, but, I just change things. I turn off my garage stuff. Bless you. And my crop region, me personally, I don't always like to see it. It doesn't print, but I don't really like to see it. So sometimes I'll turn it off, but maybe since you're so new in Revit, you leave it on just so that you can visually see kind of what's happening, right? But by taking my elevations and sort of, changing the view range of my elevations, or the view depth of my elevations in plan view, my crop region, it's not doing a whole lot for me, and that's okay. All right, so now I go back to my, we'll change this drawing to be named A201. There we go, and I'm going to grab my elevation number 1 north. Okay, and then I've got my east elevation. Oops, I clicked one too many times. East. And I'm really going to try to get them on the same page and see what happens. Ugh, right? I'm going to nudge using my arrow keys. Click, nudge using my arrow keys. Bring them as close as I can. So close, so click, click. And I just drag my little ends in. Click, click. All right. This is why I don't like the viewport, my crop regions to be on, right? Because then it gives me a headache. So hide crop region, click, 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 hide crop region, oop, yes, click, click. Now I just have to deal with my view titles here. Click, use your arrow keys to nudge them. If your mouse, makes it a little bit difficult to manipulate them, just use the arrow keys. Click, just move it over ever so slightly, the tiniest bit. Click, click. Right, you can go back and forth with this all day, and it's really easy. Click, click, to manipulate them. Click, click, right? Click, click. If I click on the viewport, my grips show up here. Click.
Is that how you do the cover sheet?
What do you mean, which part?
So it shows that we have to do a cover sheet.
Uh-huh.
And the cover sheet, is that just like the front elevation or?
Yeah, so you could pick a 3D view or a front elevation, right? Yeah, but if you want to use this one, it's already on this sheet. You just duplicate it and call it front cover elevation, right? But so you have your north, you have your east. Let's bring our south and west on here, and then I'll stop lining these up, right? Okay, click. Very nice. That one sort of lined up nicely. These seem a little high, actually, on my sheet, so I'm going to bring them down just a tiny bit. Click, click. I'm going to turn my crop region off. Click, click. And then my west elevation. See how much they come in just so much nicer when you start to clean them up on your sheets before you place them. Click, click. Click, click. And, you know, they're tight. That's really, they're very tight on there. I could bring my grids in just a little bit more, but that's acceptable, right? They look nice on the sheet. They're not overlapping. The data markers are not overlapping the title block, right? I could have made them, instead of, I think they're a 1/4 inch, right? I could have made them an 1/8, but I think if I made them an 1/8 inch, they might be too small, right? So I'm just going to leave them at a 1/4 of an inch. If I had to, you know, this is somewhat tight. When I start adding annotation, maybe only 2 elevations per sheet is appropriate, right? So one on the top, one on the bottom, okay? But my point is now, you know, when I print this, it's very nice and neat. All of these are a little bit higher than these, right? So I could click, click, and I could just, with our OCD, doing what we do, click, click, right? I could drag them down. But, you know, those simple things just make a huge, huge difference, right? Now I've got my little floor plan here. Oh, what have I done there? Oh, I don't think I'm cropping my view there. See, I'm cropping. There we go, right? Ooh, this little guy is causing issues. Hide in view element. There we go. So I've got my little garage here, but now I'm thinking, you know what? My little garage has some little elevations, and maybe these go together. Maybe I end up putting this on the elevation sheet, you know, with my you okay over there? Maybe I put my elevations on a sheet with this floor plan, and that works, right? So I'm going to go to, I'm going to create a new elevation sheet maybe. Right click, oops, AE202, right? And I've got the north garage elevation. Oh my gosh, what's happening there? And then once it's on the sheet, you're like, oh, what do I do, right? It's such a pain in the neck. So in my opinion, I'd click on it and I'd hit delete, and I would go back and fix it in the view and then place it on a sheet, right? Essentially, my crop region is just too tall, which is so easy to fix, right? Looks great. Okay, same thing here. Okay, you guys get the idea. But these little guys, so if I go to my 202, whoops, clicked one too many times. Right, I could place 3 or 4 of those at a 1/4 inch scale and get, you know, north, east garage. Get a few of them. Ooh, that hurts my head, right? It'll hurt your head eventually too, right? And it's just, again, it's so easy to line them up. So take care in getting things lined up. You know, I could do 2 more elevations and put my floor plan for my garage on there if I wanted to, right? Drag that down. Maybe we put the little garage elevation there. Move these over. It's just getting fun, Robert. Okay. Click, click. Right click, hide in view, elements. Click, click. And you figure out kind of a nice way for them to all fit on there, right? So for your cover sheet, you're going to create a cover sheet, and you know, you're going to call it cover sheet, and then I would just put some view on the front of it, right? So I think a good view is to do a 3D view. I at first really liked these levels. This is, you know, a new, maybe you don't know it, you don't probably know. These levels are being able to view them in 3D as a new edition. In 2018, that was not available. And at first I kind of liked them, and now I don't really know if I like them so much because you can see them everywhere, right? So I'm gonna use my visual graphics. This is something we talked about, we haven't used a lot. VG, visual graphics. This is like a layer dialog box. And I'm gonna go to annotation, right? I'm just showing you a bunch of different ways to do lots of stuff. but I'm going to go to levels, just in this view, levels, and turn them off. Right? I can use my little view cube to swing around my house and pick the best maybe view of my house. Okay, I like that view, right? Maybe I don't like that view. I want to show the front of the garage. Let's see. No, I like the view I was on. Here we go. We'll choose that view. Or maybe you could flip it up just a tiny bit. But I really like this view of the house. It kind of shows everything I wanted to show, right? So I've got my 3D view here. 3D. This is the default view. 3D is the default view when you click on this little house. Right click, duplicate view with detailing, 3D copy. So now if I create a cover sheet, sheets, right click, new sheet, I could drag that 3D copy, right? And I could place it on the front, and you could put some text, you know, the Imbue Cabin Project, or you could put your name or whatever you want to do, right? You can even make this larger if you don't want to do anything else on the cover. You can add a couple of different views. You could do some elevation views on here, whatever you think is kind of nice to look at, right? So let's make this 1/4 of an inch. Click, click. And there's our cover sheet, right? Of course, you'll have the beautiful windows and everything. Okay, one other thing I want to get to tonight, which is not horrible, we'll say that, but I just want to show you because one thing that we are seeing in the Imbue cabin that we don't have here is topography, right? So, you know, you're seeing, this is obviously photoshopped or rendered, but here is some topography. We're not going to make it as complex as that, but sometimes it's nice to be able to, see a ground plane, right? Instead of just seeing these floating houses, it's nice to have a piece of earth around them so that, you know, it looks sort of grounded, okay? So I want to show you how to add just a quick piece of topography around your house. And I'm going to do that by going to, I'm going to go to, good question. What level should I go to? I'm just going to go to level 1 for, no, we'll go to site. No, we won't. We'll go to level 1. Okay. All right. So 2 things I have to show you to create topography. 1, how to create it, and 2, how to obscure it from your houses. So I'm going to go to, you'll notice we have a massing and site tab here. All right. I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice we have topo surface here. I'm going to click on that. And I'm brought into sketch mode, but this sketch mode is a little bit more loosely defined than a regular sketch mode. I'm going to use points to create my topo surface. All right. So when I want to create just a very generic flat topo surface that's maybe like a rectangle, just so I can show a ground plane, right? I'm going to click around the edge of the building. So I'm going to click out here. 2, 3, 4, and I just clicked 4 elevations, okay? So these little points, I want you to notice the elevation says 0, okay? And it's associated with the level that I set before I initiated the command, so it's at level 1. I don't see anything happening out there, right? Nothing really happened, but if I hit finish, oh, finish, oop, what didn't, maybe something didn't, yes it did. Okay, maybe something didn't happen. So the reason I wasn't seeing a whole lot was because I suspect my crop region, let me hit undo so I get back in the command. Okay, so what was happening is I was creating my points beyond my crop region. Let's go into 3D mode. You know what I actually think is happening? Hold on. I think that maybe under visual graphics, I think by default, yes, topography is turned off. That might have caused a few issues with you guys. So I'm glad I was able to record that so you could see that. Okay. But what was happening is when I was doing that, I was creating these points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if I click on this one, the elevation is 0. If I click on all of them, the elevation was 0. All right, and when the elevation is 0, I create just a flat plane. So I hit finish. Okay, I go into 3D, or you can see it in any view, but essentially I've just created a little plane of Earth. Okay, now right now it just looks like what are those people called that think the Earth is flat, right? The flat earthers or whatever, right? We're flat earthers. Hopefully there's not a flat earther in here. But and it's because I'm not engaging it, but if I click my section box and I sort of drag my section box in a little bit, let's see what happens. I start to cut my Earth plane. And then I can see that it is actually an object, right, that I've generated. So my section plane comes in, and now it sort of looks more like a real kind of piece of topography, right? So I just placed this at level 1, which was probably a mistake. I'm going to click on it, and I am going to, I'm going to actually go to an elevation, north elevation. And you see now how I have some topography? You see that's very nice. I'm going to probably move it down just a little bit. MV, I'm going to move it down like 2 feet. There we go. Okay. Now by default, my topography will only go down 10 feet. So you can see that I still have like 2 foot 3 inches below this. Okay. If I go to massing and site again, and I click on model site, there's a flyout here. Okay. This tells me that my Earth will go negative 10 feet below wherever it starts. So I'm going to do let's do negative 15 feet. Hit apply, okay. And this one's a little obscure, but massing and site, model site, my little flyout here. So now it's kind of nice, right? I have kind of some grounding in all of my elevations, right? So my east elevation, my garage, I sort of have a ground plane there. And that's nice. So I created it at level 1, and then I moved it down a couple of feet, right? And that works. I go into 3D mode, and I have this nice ground plane. If you want to move it down even further, you can, right? I think it's a nice thing to have. It makes your drawings look somewhat complete, okay? Now, the interesting thing about topography is that if I go to my basement floor plan, okay, everything really looks just fine here. But if I do a section cut of my floor plate now, my topography sort of, I'm going to do SD shade, it encroaches into my building. This is one of the downfalls of topography in Revit. Although I would say out of all the tools in Revit, the topography tool is likely one of the strongest that I've seen, right? The ability to create topography from a CAD file that a surveyor gives you, it's instantaneous. You bring the CAD file in, you create the topography, which was so powerful. You just, in AutoCAD, it was so hard to do before, right? But this is one downfall, but it's very easily managed, okay? I can go to, and you don't need to worry about this, but I'm just going to show you how to fix it in case you want to do this. In my basement, if I have a piece of topography in my drawing, all you have to do is add a building pad into your drawing, okay? And a building pad, it will show you a little drawing here, it essentially creates a void in the topography where your building lives. So if I click on building pad, I again sort of go into a sketch mode, okay? And I'm going to draw a boundary around where I want my topography to stop. So I want my topography to stop just outside my foundation wall, right? So I'm outlining my foundation wall. There we go. This is sitting at my basement. I think this actually, yeah, I think that'll work. I hit finish. Nothing happens really, but when I go back into my section, you see now how the topography is not inside my building, right? So you create a building pad and it voids out that topography inside of your building here, okay? So if you want to do that, I think it's an easy thing to do, right? I think it makes sense. And you can kind of place it at level 1 and then go into an elevation and move it up and down and just kind of place it wherever you want it to go, okay? Any more questions on this little house so far. Okay, so things I really want you to, so I think, you know, with these videos, you'll be able to get, you know, the architecture finished. But things that I think you'll additionally really want to start thinking about is how to place them on sheets, right? So make sure that they're nice and neatly placed on sheets. Make sure that they line up. Make sure that they don't overlap the title block, right? Oops, see, it's starting to happen now. I added something and look at that. Now it's starting to overlap my title block, so I'll have to edit my crop region there. Make sure that you place things so that they make sense on the sheet. Oh, my crop region, click, click. I turned it off to view something, click, click. Now I forgot that when I print, right, something is weird down here. So place things, you know, change them in the view, make them look nice in the view, place them on your sheets. And then before you create a PDF, just go back over the sheets, look at them, and make sure that, you know, you didn't change some view setting to make it look odd, okay? All right. So, any other questions?
What about the title block? Do you need to do anything with it?
No, I don't. No, not for now. Just I would just fill some fake information out in here. So click on here and you could say like, you know, Shelly's cabin. Just fill out some fake information there. But no, I think we're just going to leave the title block as kind of out of the box. Okay.
There's also a sheet that says reflected ceiling.
Those are your ceilings.
Oh.
Yeah, those are just, it's a floor plan, but it shows your ceiling.
Oh, okay, like the underlays and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so final question is,